It began with a single phrase that set two nations on edge, a phrase shouted from a podium in Washington, carried across headlines, and replayed on every screen from Ottawa to Vancouver. Maybe it's time Canada joined the family properly, as the 51st state. Donald Trump's voice thundered across the rally crowd. Cameras flashed, supporters cheered, and journalists scrambled to make sense of it. The comment at first sounded like another Trump exaggeration, bold, shocking, and politically loaded. But this one hit deeper. Because this time, the president wasn't joking. Within hours, the statement spiraled into a geopolitical firestorm. Analysts debated what it meant, and U.S. officials stayed quiet. But behind closed doors, Washington insiders whispered that a new economic integration proposal had been floating through think tanks, one that would redefine Canada's sovereignty under the guise of continental unity. Ottawa was silent. For a day. Then Mark Carney appeared. Calm. Composed. A man who had spent his life balancing power and policy, from central banks to world summits, and now, as Canada's Prime Minister, he faced the most audacious test of his career. At a press conference in Ottawa, the room crackled with tension. Reporters filled every seat, cameras aimed like cannons. Carney approached the podium slowly, his expression carved with steel resolve. Canada, he began, is not for sale. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever. The room erupted. It wasn't just a denial, it was a declaration. Carney wasn't playing defense, he was drawing a line. He spoke of national dignity, of the generations who built a country distinct and independent. He reminded the world that Canada didn't rise under anyone's shadow, and that no foreign rhetoric, no populist spectacle, would erase its sovereignty.
Before moving forward, hit subscribe button, because this story is only getting started.
But Carney knew this wasn't just about pride. It was about power. Because Trump's 51st state remark had struck a nerve among those desperate for closer U.S. Canada ties, especially in border provinces battered by inflation and trade wars. To them, Trump's idea wasn't insult, it was opportunity. And that's what made it dangerous. Within hours, hashtags like hashtag 51STStateNow and hashtag CarneyCoward began trending online. American pundits called Carney arrogant. Conservative voices in Canada accused him of closing doors that could save jobs. The debate wasn't just political anymore, it was cultural, emotional, and spreading like wildfire. In Washington, Trump doubled down. He told reporters, "Look, I love Canada. Great people. But they've been taking advantage of us for years. It's time we work closer, maybe a little closer than they're comfortable with." That smirk, the same one that made allies nervous and opponents furious, said it all. The White House confirmed that Carney had been invited for a second private meeting in D.C. to discuss economic cooperation. But insiders leaked that Trump's team had something else planned, a high-stakes press conference designed to corner the Canadian Prime Minister in front of the world. Back in Ottawa, Carney's advisors urged caution. Go but don't engage, they said. Show diplomacy, not defiance. But Carney wasn't built for soft talk. The former banker turned statesman had seen what unchecked American influence could do, in markets, in policies, in power structures. This wasn't just another bilateral meeting, this was a chess match on a continental board. 3 days later, Air Canada Flight 101 touched down at Dulles International. The motorcade rolled quietly through Washington, tinted windows reflecting the White House gates as the convoy entered. Reporters flooded the lawn. The air was thick with anticipation. Everyone knew something monumental was about to happen. Behind the doors, the two men sat across from each other, one leaning back, arms folded, basking in self-assurance, the other upright, deliberate, eyes steady as glass. Trump started first. "Mark, you know we've got history. You're a smart guy, smarter than most. But I've been talking to folks, and everyone thinks we should be working more closely. People say the border's outdated. Trade barriers, currency walls, why keep pretending we're two when we could be one?" Carney didn't blink. Because nations aren't corporations, Donald, he said coolly. You don't merge countries like you merge companies. Trump chuckled. Come on, Mark. You and I both know globalism's dead. People want strong borders, strong deals. We could make North America unstoppable. Call it unity. Call it strength. Carney's gaze sharpened. You call it unity. I call it absorption. The silence that followed was heavy. Trump leaned forward. You really think Canada can keep up without us? We're your biggest trade partner. Your energy runs south. Your markets run through Wall Street. You need us more than we need you. Carney didn't raise his voice, he didn't have to. Need doesn't mean surrender. And respect isn't optional. The standoff had begun. Outside, aides whispered into phones, security shifted in nervous formations, and global markets watched in real time. This was no longer a diplomatic visit. It was an ideological clash between two visions of the continent, one built on partnership, the other on dominance. Trump smirked again, pushing a folder across the table. You'll want to read this. Draft Framework. Economic Federation Agreement. You sign it and we announce a new era, one people, one market, one flag. Carney didn't even look at it. He stood. The only flag flying over my country, he said, is red and white. And as he walked out, the cameras outside were already flashing. Canada's Prime Minister had just told the world, and Donald Trump, that the 51st state would never exist. But what no one knew was that Trump wasn't finished. He never was.
And Canada called me a couple of weeks ago. They want to be part of it. To which I said, well, why don't you just join our country? You become 51, become the 51st state. And Canada.
The moment Carney left the White House, the world erupted. Within minutes, headlines splashed across every major network. Carney defies Trump. Canada says no to the 51st state. Trade war looming. The footage of Carney's final words, "The only flag flying over my country is red and white," spread like wildfire. It became the line of the decade. To Canadians, it was pride. To Americans, it was provocation. To Trump, it was personal. That night, Trump took to Truth Social with a post that detonated like a bomb. Carney just made the worst mistake of his career. Canada's economy will pay for his arrogance. Bad leader, weak dealmaker. Sad. The message racked up millions of views in minutes. Markets trembled. The Canadian dollar dipped 3% overnight. Washington insiders leaked rumors of new tariffs, and border states began pressuring the administration to teach Ottawa a lesson. Carney returned to Ottawa to find the capital in chaos. Opposition leader Pierre Poilievre stood before cameras, smirking with that trademark precision that could slice through steel. Instead of diplomacy, we got drama. Instead of deals, we got disaster. Mark Carney went to Washington and came home with nothing but insults, and now every Canadian will pay the price. The words echoed through Parliament. But Carney didn't flinch. He'd been expecting it. He knew Poilievre would weaponize the fallout, that every move, every headline would be used to paint him as reckless. Yet this wasn't just about politics anymore. Something deeper was unfolding. Behind closed doors, reports surfaced of U.S. lobbyists reaching out to Canadian premiers, offering trade incentives and investment deals in exchange for regional cooperation with Washington's new North Continental Agreement. In plain language, divide and conquer. Western provinces, already strained by oil disputes and inflation, began listening. Alberta business leaders publicly questioned Carney's hardline stance. If unity with the U.S. brings stability, one CEO told reporters, why should we stand in the way? Carney saw it for what it was, an economic siege disguised as opportunity. At an emergency cabinet meeting, his ministers were split. Some urged him to de-escalate. Others demanded a stronger stance. But Carney, cold and calculating as ever, laid it out clearly. Trump doesn't want trade. He wants control. The moment we bend, we stop being a country. That single line silenced the room. Hours later, New footage leaked from inside the White House Situation Room. Trump was reportedly fuming, shouting at aides that Carney had humiliated him. He ordered his team to freeze all non-essential trade negotiations until Ottawa reconsiders its position. CNN ran the leak nonstop. Fox called Carney ungrateful. Social media fractured into chaos. Hashtag Stand with Carney and hashtag Join America Now trended simultaneously, splitting public opinion in half. The political pressure was suffocating. But Carney didn't retreat. He advanced. Days later, he appeared at a massive outdoor rally in Toronto, a sea of red and white flags stretching as far as the eye could see. The crowd chanted his name. Carney stepped up to the microphone, the cold October wind brushing across his face. "They say we need America to survive," he said, voice echoing through the square. "But let me remind them, our strength has never come from fear. It's come from unity, from sovereignty, and from standing on our own 2 feet when others wanted us on our knees." The audience roared. It wasn't just a speech, it was defiance turned into theater. Drone shots of the rally blanketed the news cycle. Commentators began comparing Carney to historical leaders who stood against overwhelming pressure. For the first time, even critics admitted, he'd become the symbol of resistance. But Washington wasn't letting go. The next day, a leaked memo revealed that Trump's inner circle had drafted a new initiative, the Continental Prosperity Act. Hidden within the proposal were clauses giving American corporations near total control over Canadian infrastructure projects, pipelines, railways, digital grids, under the justification of security cooperation. Carney immediately saw through it. This wasn't about partnership. It was economic annexation by stealth. And then came the blow that shook Ottawa to its core. The U.S. temporarily suspended all auto imports from Ontario, one of Canada's largest industries. Thousands of jobs hung in the balance. Factories stalled. The markets panicked again. It was the opening Trump needed to turn the screw tighter. In a late-night press conference, he grinned and said, "We're not enemies. We just want what's fair." But maybe it's time Canadians ask themselves, do they want a leader who isolates them or one who integrates them? The message was clear. He was turning the Canadian people against their own prime minister. Carney's inner circle urged him to retaliate economically, to hit back with tariffs of their own. But he refused. That's what he wants, he said. A trade war he can win on headlines. We win by standing taller, not shouting louder. But privately, the pressure was breaking him down. Sleepless nights, endless calls from foreign investors, premiers demanding answers. Even his closest allies began to wonder if Carney's calm exterior was hiding a storm of doubt. Until one night, a call came through from an anonymous U.S. diplomat. The voice was low, hesitant. "You don't understand, Mr. Prime Minister. This isn't just about trade. They're building a narrative that Canada can't stand alone. You need to act fast before that story becomes truth." Carney hung up, silent. The reality hit him like ice. This wasn't just Trump's play. It was bigger, coordinated, a campaign to reshape how the world saw Canada. And if he didn't stop it now, the 51st state might not just be an idea. It could become a self-fulfilling prophecy. He turned to his chief of staff. "Call the press. Tomorrow, I speak to the nation."
Well, if I may, as you know from real estate, there are some places that are never for sale.
That's true.
We're sitting in one right now, Buckingham Palace that you visited as well.
That's true.
And having met with the owners of Canada over the course of the campaign last several months, it's not for sale, won't be for sale ever. But the opportunity is in the partnership and what we can build together. And we have done that in the past. And part of that, as the President just said, is with respect to our own security. And my government is committed for a step change in our investment in Canadian security and our partnership, and I'll say this as well, that the President has revitalized international security, revitalized NATO, and us playing our full weight in NATO, and that will be part of it. Well,
Dawn broke over Ottawa like a cold mirror, gray, silent, and heavy with anticipation. The entire nation was waiting. Streets were empty, offices paused. Every television, every phone screen, every radio frequency was tuned to one thing. Mark Carney's national address. The man who had defied Trump, angered Washington, and divided his own country now stood alone behind a podium in Parliament's Grand Hall. Cameras clicked. The red maple flag draped solemnly behind him. His face was calm, but the tension in his eyes said everything. This was a make-or-break moment, not just for his leadership but for Canada's soul. He began slowly, voice steady but deep with conviction. We have always been friends with America. Allies. Partners. But friendship is not ownership. Partnership is not submission. And sovereignty is not up for negotiation. Across living rooms and classrooms, silence fell. Carney continued, each sentence landing like a strike on steel. Our southern neighbor may be powerful, but our strength lies in principle. When we trade, it is by choice, not coercion. When we speak, it is as equals, not subordinates. And when we defend our independence, we do it not in defiance but in dignity. Thunderous applause burst inside the chamber. Some MPs rose to their feet, others sat frozen, realizing history was being written before them. Meanwhile in Washington, Trump watched the broadcast live from the Oval Office. According to aides, he slammed his desk and muttered, "He's grandstanding for the cameras." Yet even he couldn't ignore it. Carney's words were echoing across borders, carried by millions online. Then came the climax, the part that would be quoted for decades. We are not the 51st star on someone else's flag. We are the red and white that stands tall on its own. Our future is not an extension of another nation's dream, it is ours to write, ours to protect, and ours to live. The hall erupted. Outside, crowds in cities across Canada cheered, waving flags from balconies and overpasses. Social media flooded with hashtags, hashtag We Stand with Carney, hashtag Canada Strong, hashtag Red and White Forever. But as the applause roared, Trump fired back within minutes. From the White House podium, he declared, "If Canada wants to go it alone, fine. We'll protect American interests first. Don't come crying when your economy crashes." It was classic Trump, defiant populist, designed to inflame. Yet this time, something was different. Instead of fear, there was fury. Even in border states, Americans began questioning the move. Economists warned it could backfire, hurting both economies. Carney had done what few thought possible, turned Trump's aggression into his own rallying cry. Over the next week, Canadian unity surged to heights unseen in decades. Provinces that once fought over pipelines now stood shoulder to shoulder. Even Poilievre, ever the critic, was forced to soften his attacks. We disagree on methods, he admitted, but no one questions the message. Canada stands tall. Behind the scenes, quiet diplomacy began to thaw the tension. U.S. senators, alarmed by plunging trade figures, pushed for reconciliation. The tariffs were rolled back within days. The so-called Continental Prosperity Act was shelved indefinitely. And in that moment, Carney's gamble had paid off. He hadn't just defied Trump, he had reshaped the balance of respect between two nations. A week later, Carney appeared once more before reporters. This time, no podium drama, no political theater, just a faint, knowing smile. Canada and the United States will always have differences, he said. But those differences make us stronger, as long as they're settled through respect, not dominance. He paused, then added quietly, "Our sovereignty isn't a wall between us, it's the foundation beneath us." The crowd fell silent. Even his critics knew, the crisis was over, but its echo would define an era. That night, drone shots captured thousands gathering outside Parliament Hill. Candles glowed against the dark sky. National anthems echoed. It wasn't about politics anymore, it was about identity, pride, and endurance. And somewhere in Washington, Trump watched those images in silence, expression unreadable. Maybe he understood that he'd awakened something powerful north of the border. For Carney, it wasn't victory he celebrated. It was vindication, proof that quiet strength can stand taller than bluster, and that a nation's worth isn't measured in deals or borders, but in its unbreakable belief in itself. The storm had passed. But its story had just begun. And that was the moment Canada drew the line. If you stand for truth and sovereignty, hit subscribe, turn on the bell, and join the movement. Because here, we don't follow headlines, we make them.
Canada debates.